Hey,
Josh, what is up, dude?
how's it
Man,
going? How are you?
beautiful, beautiful. How about you? Where are you on? Are you on West Coast?
Yeah, I'm in LA. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful.
How
Well,
about you?
hey,
Where do you reside?
Michigan, the
Nice.
old Midwest. In the middle of the dump of winter
Yeah,
and
the
almost
home of
freezing
insane,
rain.
the home of the insane clown posse. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, of all things for the state to be known, but why not? What a great little act.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the last time I was in Michigan was to visit Violent J and Shaggy.
Oh no
I
shit. Okay,
I
wow.
I I interviewed them for a documentary I was doing and ended up becoming friends. So yeah,
Dang, no,
yeah,
no kidding, man. That is rad. I mean, it's so funny too. Like they're kind of they're one of those things. Love them, hate them. They're one of
yeah.
those things that you have to root for just because of how small it started and how local
Oh
and like
yeah,
what it's become. And the huge following with their gathering and their festival and man,
yeah,
it's insane.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, talk about lo-fi and
Dude,
horror. It's like there you go.
Dude, you're not lying. You're not lying. All right. So as far as you, Josh,
Yeah,
I
man.
first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time. This is
Of
beautiful.
course.
This is my first interview for the year, and
Yeah.
thank God that it was something absolutely awesome like this. Destroy All Neighbors, man. I was rooting for, and it absolutely paid off. I was such a fan of it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was ridiculously silly in all of the best manners, and it got pulled off. So
Thank
starting
you.
with your story in film, and honestly,
Yeah.
you coming up. Did you grow up in the West Coast there, the California area?
I grew up in Denver,
Okay.
and that's where I went to high school, and then I ended up coming west for college and stuff like that. But yeah, started
Okay.
out started out in
All right.
Denver. Yeah.
What about your interest in film now, as far as you coming up and did you have friends? Was it family? Who was kind of introducing you to some of the cooler stuff that wasn't the mainstream Star Wars
Oh,
and things like
oh,
that?
that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I remember. I have a couple like very distinct memories of like my dad was a homicide detective. Um,
Oh.
yeah, so he introduced me to a lot of weird. I mean, a lot of just a lot of insanity. But you know, I mean, I have a memory of there was like a snowstorm where we got snowed in and we went. It was at the time 7-Eleven used to rent
Mhm,
videos, which is very crazy to think about.
mhm.
But I remember like there was a snowstorm, so we went to 7-Eleven and we just got a bunch of movies. And I don't know, I feel like that maybe that's where it started. Like I remember we watched Psycho and then we watched Psycho 2. And I just
Oh
remember at
man.
the end of I remember at the end of Psycho 2 there's a part where Norman like hits the old lady on the head with a shovel.
Yeah.
And and her chair just explodes and she just falls to the ground. I just remember laughing so hard at that part. Like my dad and I would just kept rewinding it. I just thought it was the funniest thing. And it's like, I mean, it's really dark, obviously, but like, I don't know. I feel like I've been chasing that dragon ever since. Hitting an old lady over the head with a shovel. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it too was like just yeah, my dad. Like, another movie I think of is there's a movie Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Bolorama.
Oh
Do you know
man.
this movie?
Okay. I don't know this one. No.
Well, you're missing out. Well, so there was a thing. So like now on like Shudder we have like Joe Bob Briggs, and like we've had him in the past, obviously too. But like um, back when I was a kid, like Gilbert Gottfried.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
So he had a show on USA called USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried, I believe.
Okay.
And so I remember that was the thing, is I remember my dad was watching. He's like, "Oh, you got to check this out," and it was Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Bolorama,
Okay.
and it's just the dumbest like. Yeah, it was like a movie about these like teenagers stuck in a bowling alley, and they somehow summoned a rubber puppet demon, and You know,
Oh my
as
God. How,
yeah, I
is
just
this
remember
like a
like some.
70s or 80s
It was
movie?
like 80, maybe like 80s, yeah, late 80s, 90s or something. But like, um, I just remember, I think maybe it was like a full moon movie or something. But like, so, somebody gets
Oh,
their
okay.
head,
Okay.
they shove a guy's head into the bowling ball cleaner. I just remember that, and just like again, just these little seminal moments where you're just like, holy shit, like this is yeah. Anyway, so those are kind of those are some,
Oh my God,
but
man.
but what's
I love that. I
but
love that.
what's fun about that is that like you can tell like, okay, they know that it's funny. They know that what they're making is cheesy or
Hmm.
schlocky or and they were leaning into it.
Hmm.
There was I think that was a big part of it, was like, holy like, oh, this movie is bad, but it's good, but like they know it's bad, and that's what makes it good. So anyway, yeah,
Right.
not to have this turn into a whole therapy session,
No,
but
no,
yeah.
no. I love that. Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing too. And actually, being able to like get a little time to dig into, some of these things is seeing something like, Destroy All Neighbors, and then kind of picking a little bit at like, things that were, and obviously other hands and involved, but some of
Yeah,
the fun stories like that, dude. I absolutely love that. That's awesome.
yeah, where it
And
all comes from. Yeah.
some of the unironic, moments I think in film are always fun. Like you mentioned, the whole aspect of the Psycho 2,
Yeah.
and it not supposed to be funny, but the way it was pulled
Right.
off or filmed, like I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
was your dad kind of a main influence as far as horror and that genre being introduced to you then?
Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of it is just like the real life horror of like
Yeah.
of like of like
Mm-hmm.
murders. Because he was a homicide detective, so he like, I mean, he was always coming home and telling us the most outrageous stories. But like cops just have like such a dark humor, and I just ate it all up. I just thought it was the funny. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah. I don't. I mean, like I remember. I don't know. It's like I remember him telling me about. I don't know, like them showing up to a scene, and and it smelled like somebody was cooking something really good, and what it was is it was like a guy had died in a hot tub. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but like
Oh no.
just weird shit like that was just my childhood. It was just a lot of weird shit like that, where it's like the darkest thing you can think of, but like filtered through a sense of humor. I don't know. It was
Well,
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, even so that we don't give away all of the
Yeah.
personal stories and all of the fun the fun there. Something that I had kind of heard as far as or I thought of when I'm watching this movie is
Yeah.
you mentioned the local 7-Eleven, but did you have a local rental to you that was something that was special? I feel like this was a movie that when I was coming up, I would have stumbled on and had the ridiculous cover art and
Oh
popped
yeah,
it
yeah,
around
yeah.
and saw a couple of the real slimy moments.
Oh
Was that
yeah.
7-Eleven your spot, or
Well,
did
that
you have like a local mom
no,
and
there was
pop?
another video store. I don't even remember what it was. I vividly have it in my head, and I know exactly where it is, but I don't remember what the name of it
Okay,
was. But it was like a place that had like they had like a popcorn machine
awesome.
inside,
It's
which was
awesome.
weird. And yeah, I mean, so like, I mean, I grew up I mean, in a relatively Christian home or whatever, like a very like religious kind of like, my mom, like it was. I grew up in the '80s too, so it was like during the time of Satanic Panic, where you know, even like I listened to like Christian heavy metal records that like my mom was pretty sure were satanic or something. Like it was that level of everything. So like I was kind of not allowed to watch a lot of these movies.
Uh,
So my experience was these lurid covers, or I mean, or posters. Like I have a vivid memory. Like I have a vivid memory of being afraid of Freddy, but it was just because like, we had walked by a video store and there was a poster on the wall, and it like I remember it
oh
so
man.
burned into my mind. But I mean, that's kind of the funny thing about like, yeah, horror is like the scariest stuff in my head is it was all in my head. it wasn't even.
Yeah.
Or it would be kids telling you like, "Oh man, there's this movie called Candyman, and this happens, and
The
there's
lore
bees in him,"
behind it.
and you're like, "What is like?" You can't wrap your head around it. So like, I don't know. Part of what I liked about horror movies in general too is like demystifying all that stuff, like
Hmm.
seeing the. That's why I love like Evil Dead 2 so much. Like
Oh man.
you could see the magic trick happening,
Hmm.
and to me it felt like I was being invited to like go make my own movies and to go do like to join the club or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah. It almost makes it feel a little bit more like a personal level, and even if like on a bigger scale, when you go back and like I watch the Star Wars movies, the original three movies with my family,
yeah,
and like I've recently come into quite a bit of an argument about the episodes 1 through 3, and then talking about the originals, and there's no battle as far as them
yeah,
being better, but the
right.
practical effects in it
Oh
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
puppetry, and there's just like it gives it kind of like a personal feeling to where you have somebody that like tossed in that energy into it, and anytime that stuff pops up, whether it's an Evil Dead 2 or a smaller scale horror movie, even, you're like, oh, okay, these guys want us to come and play along as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, like it's Star Wars too. Like I was I was talking to my kid about like the cantina scene where like the the dude's hand, the werewolf kind of hand, just like
Flops
flops to
on.
the ground, like,
Yeah.
or having to cut open the tauntaun to get in there. Like I don't know, like all that stuff. It you know it's right there in front of you, and it's real. That's
Yeah.
talking about like practical effects and stuff. Like
Hmm.
I mean, and also I grew up in the time of like all those creepy Jim Henson movies, like Labyrinth, or like the
Dark
Dark Crystal. Like the Dark Crystal
Crystal.
fucked me up hardcore. Like it was just like what it like because, but it was partially because it was real. Like I mean, I guess at that time it wasn't like they had CG, but it was just like it was just too real for me, and it would really like freaked me out.
Hmm.
But in the best way possible. Like yeah.
And with
So
the Dark Crystal, that was one that I had never seen actually
uh-huh.
until like even having kids. And I watched it like as an adult, and I'm like, holy sh! I mean, and it absolutely holds up even to this day. When you sit down
Oh yeah.
with that movie, and the things that they were trying to pull off then, dude, they could have
Yeah.
never like done that any differently for it to be just as good as it is today. And
Yeah. And
bravo.
that's what I like about yeah, I mean that was kind of why I really wanted to have Vlad in our movie, Alex Winter's character in prosthetics was just like was because like I feel like once as an audience, like if I'm watching like a Muppet movie, like Kermit the Frog is there, and I'm able to suspend my disbelief and be like, no, this is a real this is a real frog, or you see a character that's in that insane of makeup and you go with it. I feel like then at that point, then the audience is already, they've already bought into that. Then the rest of the world, will be even that much more believable. I think,
Sure, sure,
at
okay.
least that's the theory.
I mean, within that, I had had read and kind of like listened to a couple of the interviews here that you guys were doing with like PR. Um,
Mm-hmm.
was that something that Alex was involved with as far as for application as well? And
Um,
had he done anything like that
uh,
before?
so let's see. I mean, he had done quite a bit of prosthetic stuff before. I mean, like he was in. Have you seen the movie Freaked? He did a movie called Freaked. Um,
Oh yeah! Oh my
yeah,
God! I always go to like Lost Boys and the typical.
right.
Holy shit! I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, yeah. So that was another one of those that like got burned into my brain. Um, and
Oh my God! I gotta watch that
and
again.
weirdly enough, like because Jonah has had an office. Like I live in South Pasadena, and Jonah had an office in South Pasadena, and so we would sit in his office, and right across the alleyway was Alex's office, like Alex's production company.
Mm-hmm.
And so for whatever reason, I mean, not for whatever reason, for a very specific reason, we would like be sitting there looking out at his window and just sort of imagining like, oh man, like we just loved the movie Freak so much. So as we're writing this, or like revising the script, we're just like, man, like, you know, maybe if Alex came on as a producer and just gave us some notes, or like, you know, would just let us put his name on on something, like maybe that would help attract, or it would help us understand the mystical, magical, world of prosthetics. And then eventually, we got the script to a good place, and Jonah presented it to him, and he was like, "Oh, I like this a lot. Like, what do you want from me?" And I was like, "Well, we'd love to have you on as a producer, but like, I mean, if you want to play Vlad, you can." And he was like, "Oh, that's amazing." And so he brought it. We 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 brought in Gabe Bartalos through one of the first writers. Charlie Piper worked with Gabe. Gabe did like the basket case movies, and he designed Leprechaun and like all this. He's just like a god.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Alex's side, like because he had done Freaked and like the Bill and Ted, like especially like Bill and Ted 2 and 3, there's just a lot of great prosthetic stuff. Like in 2, he's like, Granny Preston, like running around as this like crazy evil grandma and stuff. And so he brought on Bill Corso, and Bill was like did all the makeup and applying of the prosthetics. But Bill, like, he's an Academy Award winner. He like the movie he worked on before our little movie was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
No shit. Man.
He was doing like I guess like for the stunt stuff, they would do the stunt guy up to look just like Harrison Ford. But like he had won an Academy Award for Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton version. So
wow.
Anyway, but so it was. I mean, the more and more I think about it, the more I realize like just how insanely lucky we were to have somebody on board who understands the business. Like he's a director and he's a producer and he's just fucking sharp as a tack.
Mm-hmm.
And then so for him to have that, and then to be so dedicated to this character, and have the understanding of like prosthetics and the patience for it, and then just to be so funny. Like I don't know, we really 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 lucked out.
The good home run for sure.
Yeah, and then obviously Jonah like just completely killed it. I mean, no pun intended, but like just all across the board, like this, so many people who shared our very unique, weird sensibility and corner of the horror world.
And I found it too where, and I'm not going to say that it's a completely rare occurrence, but you can have sometimes where you can see something and there's a big name or maybe 2-3 big names that are attached to something, and then kind of other cats that fall into place are just like there, or like pieces of it, so to speak. But everybody in this, I mean, from William's girlfriend, who her name is slipping me now, but
yeah. The character's Emily, but her name's Kieran Dahl. Yeah.
There you go. Everybody in it, I mean, was honestly like so wholesome for the situation, and like so endearing almost at times, where like I thought that it was great that seeing some of the cats that were involved, and then everybody as a whole, like it was just all around. I mean, the casting, the acting for it. I loved all the bums that are constantly jumping out at him, just getting in his business. And I think, one of the things too that was small for me with this was the dialogue as well. There was a lot of smaller things where if you're just hyper focused on, the crazy practical effects or different things, some of it might get lost. But even key moments with like Thomas Lennon and being in that studio, and at the one point, the recording artist, starts like mocking how he's like, get the hell out of here, you know, like kind of
Yeah,
his
right,
face.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
my god,
Get the fuck
dude.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that something that was like his doing, or was that a scripted
uh,
thing?
no, that was just them. They just had such a good chemistry. Like they're
Oh,
just,
dude. Oh
um,
my god.
I mean, that's
I
what's
was
fun.
about
So,
crying.
so I mean, the guy, the character Caleb Bang Jansen, like that. That's Ryan
Yeah.
Katner. Um, so Ryan, he's in a band called Man Man, but he and Brett Morris, like they did the soundtrack for the movie.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but it's just funny because he was like, oh, I want to be in the movie. Like, you guys got to roll for me. I want to be Caleb Bing Jansen. And so I think we made him audition or whatever. But he's a buddy of ours, and I mean that was it was like a mild risk because I didn't know, like I knew him as a friend and I know he's a great performer and stuff, but I was like, man, can he hold his own, with Tom Lennon? Is he going to be too big? Is he going to be too shy? And like,
Oh man.
he came on super strong, and I was like, I think this is hilarious. I hope it's not too much. But then, like, as we just went along, he's just so funny and just so fearless too. Like, just running around in his underwear or whatever. Like, you know,
I mean,
and it's
yeah,
funny too
it
because
was so funny.
he's I guess not married, but he has a kid with Constance Wu,
Okay.
who's she's in Crazy Rich Asians, and she's in like a million, like she's like a big
Hmm.
movie star. So it's just funny that, like, you know this guy is just running around with his belly out, and you know
This
it's
crazy ass
so
is the one on the
funny.
other end.
Yeah, you know,
No.
but that's what it takes. That's what he was so wonderful.
Oh,
So,
dude, and like I say, that was one of the things that I loved as well, was not only did you have the practical in your face things that were funny or over the top, but when you're stopping and you're listening to the dialogue or just some of the little mannerisms that Jonah had,
uh-huh.
and just the way that they
Yeah.
played and the characters, I mean the relationships, whether good or bad,
Hmm.
uh, it was I mean absolutely, like I just loved kind of the rapport and relationship
Oh,
that they
thanks.
had together.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes me really happy. Like, I love because we worked really, really hard on all those little things, just the dialogue and the you know those kind of like catchphrases that keep coming back, um or even, yeah, like the relationships. Like, that's, I mean, to me, I don't know, like, I kind of come from like an improv background, and part of improv is like, you know having two characters in a scene and sort of establishing, like, okay, what's their relationship, and you know not worrying so much about the plot, but about just like, who are these people and what is their, how do they, click. And I know, like, I've I've done the awful thing of looking on Letterboxd or whatever, like at the lower rated the lower ratings. Um, and a lot of times, like, we get dinged for, people are like, oh, like, this movie like goes everywhere, and it's like, like, we get dinged on the plot of the movie,
mhm.
and to me, it's like, it's like, I don't care, like, I don't. Um, to me, it's like, it's about these characters and putting them together and seeing the
Mhm.
chemistry, and um, seeing what kind of a pressure cooker we can put William in. Um, and there's something really, like, the movie takes some weird turns, and like, I really like that, because it's like, we could have there's a lot of more like obvious things we could have done with the movie,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that maybe would satisfy, like, those the 1 star people. Uh, you know, I heard a funny stand up thing that was like, you know, like, a 2 star review is the worst, because like 1 star, like, that's about them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's,
It's a
they
little
got
more
something
personal
going
on their
on.
end. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
2 is like, oh, they wanted to like it, but they didn't. But like, 1 is just like, I don't know, man. Like, fuck off. Like, it's
Well,
fine. Yeah.
this brought me back to, and I think this is a mutual love, you know, for us.
Yeah.
You mentioning Ernest Scared Stupid and our friend
Yeah.
Ernest here.
Yeah.
This movie honestly brought me back to those types of
I
situations.
rewatched that
And
last night for you. Just
oh, dude. Honestly, like when I think of this and people kind of fixating on like plots sometimes. Now I've
yeah.
seen some movies, don't get me wrong, that I've seen a plot and I'm just like, what in the hell is
Oh, for
going
sure.
on? Like I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
follow what it is that, you know, like a story or where this is supposed to be going or where even I am.
Right.
This situation made me feel like it was almost, you know, like you're kind of sometimes in like a wild, just like fever
Yeah.
dream. Not the whole thing, but there were certain moments where it's like, oh my God, this poor guy, you know? And like, I think back to movies like the Ernest movies sometimes, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why the hell is this old guy hanging out with kids for Ernest Scared Stupid? Like, why is
Yeah.
he like even involved in these kids' story? You know, this trash man and driving around and has to go
When
and tell
he's
this
like,
old lady that she has too much shit in her yard. You know, it's like, what are we doing? How did this get greenlit?
yeah, that whole aspect. Yeah, I rewatched it last night, and it's like, yeah, as a kid, it was like, oh, sure, Ernest is hanging out with children. That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But then I'm like, what? Like,
You're like,
and like one of the kids' dads is like the chief of
yeah,
whatever, like the sheriff of the
yeah.
town, and he's like they find out that Ernest has been hanging out with the kids in the woods, and
Uh-huh.
and I think his wife is like, oh, like you took him to that part of the woods or something. It's like, no, you shouldn't have my kids at all. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Right, right.
but I mean, it is funny though. Like one of the first Ernest movies I saw. Like nobody talks about this movie. There's a movie called Doctor Otto and the
Oh yeah.
Moonbeam.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
Yep.
that? Yeah.
Yep.
It was very like in Ernest Scared Stupid. There's a part where he's talking about the Ottoman Empire,
Mm-hmm.
where he keeps changing characters, and he does that a lot. I mean,
The
in
very
the
close
Doctor
ups
Otto,
and
yeah, or when he
yep.
has the little like he has his hair is actually his hand or something. Um, but that was like my gateway drug. That was the stuff that like I remember just being so fascinated by it, but it was in that weird zone where like you could tell that his costume was like you know made of pipes and wires, and I mean thinking about it right now, like the I should look back at the Dr. Otto like character design, because I bet you like our Vlad at the end of the movie had a lot of similarity,
Oh man, I
but
love
even
it.
especially like the lighting, and I mean a lot of people have done that sort of like bisexual lighting, I guess what they
Mm-hmm.
call it, like the sort of Mario Bava
Mm-hmm.
lighting, but like to me that all comes from from Ernest. Um, but I love
I love the nod.
yeah, I love, I mean yeah, don't get me started on Ernest. I love Ernest. I think he's so fun. I mean, there's these videos of Jim Varney hanging out with Robin Williams. You should check it out on YouTube, but they're like improvising back and forth, and like Jim Varney is just as sharp as Robin Williams.
Oh
Um,
wow, I've
but
never seen that.
but similar, I don't know. I feel like similar to my career or my sensibilities, it's like because he chose to be a doofus, everybody just kind of was like, oh, that guy's dumb, or like this is for idiots, or I don't know, whatever. This is
Mm-hmm.
like for kids or something. But to me, that's always been what I've been attracted to, is just like that sort of playfulness and weirdness, and you see it in Ernest Scared Stupid, where he goes off on this whole thing about um, Botswana and how they fought off the Ottoman Empire, and it's a very astute, high level, historically informed idea,
Uh-huh.
but it also involves him like in kind of weird brown face or whatever, like acting like
I
I don't know. It's like it's my favorite things are like when I always talk about like high low, like
mm-hmm.
smart and dumb at the same time is just my favorite. Anyway.
Man, I honestly, I couldn't agree. I mean, I've loved, that was one of those things too with like Ernest or even Pee-wee that
Yeah.
was like it was a kind of an accidental scary at times, with
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
large Marge and certain aspects that are happening that maybe ordinarily wouldn't be, but I feel like those effects and the way that they had pulled off some of the the things even for like the TV show every once in a while, where you're like, holy shit, is that supposed to be cute? Like that's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a huge one for me too. Even or like the scare, like when he's in like the magic shop, or like, he's in the magic shop and the guy like has a big head, or like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just these little weird things that sort of like burn themselves into my brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's like horror. I don't know. It's like, or like there's. I feel like there used to be there's a blog, maybe it's still around, called Kinder Trauma. I feel like it was like a Tumblr or something like that.
Okay.
Perhaps they have an Instagram now, but Kinder Trauma. It was sort of like dedicated to these weird things that we saw at too early an age, and
We can chalk
I
both of these up into that.
yeah, I mean the Tim Curry Pennywise behind you is
Yeah.
another one of those where like I didn't even see the whole miniseries as a kid. I just saw like images, or I saw the cover of the book with like a little boat and like a hand or
Yeah.
something, and like it just you know completely rotted my brain. But then I guess made me want to make those things as well. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I,
Yeah,
I think there's something too with with that, where your imagination becomes something that might even be as much of a of a bad thing as what you're actually like seeing. But
yeah,
something like this movie, here, I mean, as far as with Destroy All Neighbors, I think that I love is that the practical effects and the use of such
hmm,
make it so I am so happy that I am seeing transformations and I am seeing
yeah,
disgusting and I am seeing things that my imagination may have brought me to. Uh, you know, when you're sitting down and writing this, I mean, what were
yeah,
some kind of key moments as far as, or sitting down with with writers?
yeah,
What
yeah.
were some kind of key moments as far as like conversations that you guys were having that was like, God, this is so ridiculous. How are we going to be able to pull this off?
Right. I mean, I think a big part of it was like, I don't know, trying to stay true to the characters, or I mean, it was pretty obvious from day one that like we wanted to try and infuse it with as much like insanity as possible, like as much as we could afford. Which is why like in earlier drafts, William was a cartoonist, and so a lot of the stuff that happened was like, like his imagination kind of,
Mm, mm.
like very inspired by like Better Off Dead. Um,
Okay.
you know, and so anyway, so it was always a goal, like, okay, these dream sequences or whatever, like, you know, and in earlier drafts too, like they went on for you know, the bed suddenly like is made of flesh and it's actually Vlad, the pillow is Vlad's head, and like, we had like,
Okay.
with a bigger budget, it was just even more insane. But I think a lot of it was like we kept trying to come back to, I don't know, just like really leaning into like the paranoia of it, but also I don't know, like I have as evidenced by this meandering answer, I have ADHD, and so does Jonah, and Alex as well, and like um a lot of the movie is about kind of that experience of
Okay.
having so many ideas and wanting to put them all in somewhere, and wanting to pursue these creative things, but like other people, don't get it, or you start to feel like they're getting in the way, or even just when you're doing something creative where you start pushing other people, it's like, like, oh, I can't go to that, don't talk to me, like I'm trying to finish this big piece of work or whatever.
Hmm.
So I don't know, so in these discussions, a lot of it was about like the the feeling of like I really wanted to like hold on to those feelings that I have of anxiety, or feeling, that there's the whole motif of like him forgetting to pick up the printer paper.
Right.
And you know, and like that's kind of a stand-in for just like so many things that I forget on a daily basis, like with my wife or whatever, or work. You know, I mean, because to me, those are the real horrors. Like it's that feeling of like, oh, I cannot get my shit together. I can't. I'm showing up late. Like I can't finish these things. You know, so that was, you know, like there was that element of horror, and then I don't know. Also, just that feeling that I'm never gonna stop renting. I'm never gonna get out of this place. Um, you know, and just hope, hope beyond hope of just like, well, if I do this one thing, if I finish this project, then it'll get me out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, the reality is like, that's not, how things work. I mean, like, like it could, but it's like, you have to be comfortable with where you are and find happiness in at, you know, where you are, and that's going to help, you know, free
Yeah.
you, or
As these things come, you know, you're like, okay, cool. Maybe give yourself a goal as far as the next step
yeah.
past that.
But to
Yeah.
also
Okay.
know, I mean, you know, I think a big part of it too is like, have you seen it? There's a movie, Inside Llewyn Davis, that the Coen
Oh
brothers
yeah.
did.
Yep.
Remember when I watched that, I was like, because it's kind of a biopic. It's like this guy, and he's an artist, and he, you know, every one of those movies is usually like somebody who like pushes everyone away from them, but then they make this amazing piece of work or whatever. But like in his case, he pushed everyone away, and then he just kind of was like mediocre and just sort of
Right.
sucked,
Right.
which is way more likely the case.
Yeah.
And so that was always kind of that was another part of the discussions we had, was like, okay, you know, we have this character who he's pinning everything on this album, but like, you know, maybe he needs to fix himself,
Uh-huh.
or, you know, have some sort of personal growth, which is, again, it's like, it's hilarious to have these conversations of like personal growth and whatever, but then it's also like, you know, what consistency of vomit do we need on the set, and you know, what color, how dark should the blood be, and stuff like that. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's great, and you know, it's like one of those things. You know, as far as, you know, there being that availability for depth. I mean, as
Yeah.
well as just, you know, having like an absolute fun time with that. But I will say, I mean, you know, there was definitely like a moment uh, that was relative. I mean, as far as
Hmm.
myself, I've played in bands for a long time. I've, you know, done different things as far as, you know, music wise, and
Yeah.
even, you know, within like doing like interviews and, you know, trying to do research and trying to set aside this, and, you know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where, you know, you have to kind of set back sometimes and just like make sure that like, okay, that you're kind of whole in of yourself, and that maybe sometimes the hyper focus is going on something where,
Yeah.
you know, you just have to kind of take a second, take a deep breath, you know, and I felt like there was a couple times William needed to
Yeah.
do that.
But then also, you know, it's that's what's funny, is it's like both. It's like you need to have some perspective on your life, but I
Mhm.
think also, like, I don't know, in order for things to happen, like you kind of do have to like dive down that
Yeah,
hole and like
yeah,
nerd out, but it's yeah, to me it's always, it's such like a, I don't know, just like, it's a ridiculous but also noble pursuit. I think like
totally.
that's why it's like, you know, like I do legitimately like prog music, like a lot, like
Okay.
probably more than I should or whatever. But it's also because I just think it's like the best. It's like the best music.
Okay. All
Well, I just
right.
think like the people who do it are like the like incredible musicians. Um, but it takes this weird level of like dedication, and also sort of, I guess, like denial of reality, that it's like, no, this is important. This is very important. I'm gonna do the most insane 20-minute, you know, keyboard solo, and um, I don't know. So many of the things that I love are like these ridiculous pursuits,
Yeah.
like the extent to which I watch all these terrible movies, It's like, you know, or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like you look, like in high school, I got into juggling, and like,
Okay.
yeah, but like it's when you see a guy who's good at juggling, like it's everything. Everybody likes it. Everybody
Hey,
enjoys a good juggler.
hell yeah.
But it's
It takes you off
it's just
guard.
like,
You're like, hey,
hey,
it's cool as hell. Hey,
yeah,
come check this out real
yeah.
quick.
But it's like it's just such a those, those are skills that are not transferable. You know what I mean? It's like if you're good at juggling fire sticks, like it doesn't make you good at anything else. Like you're just really good at
Yeah.
juggling fire sticks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Um,
touche, touche.
and that's part of what I like about William and his character with Prague is that it's like, he you have in order to succeed you have to dive into it, but then you also have to know how to stick your head out and like make sure that you haven't scared the rest of your family and
Yeah.
friends off. I guess I don't know.
At one point, you're like, okay, this is at 8 minutes, 32
Yeah.
seconds. Maybe let's wrap this for the next track, and leave
Right.
room for another song on side A.
Yeah.
I mean, that like there was a
Yeah.
lot of there was like I said, kind of prefacing this, there was a lot to unpack and unfold that I loved that was just so ridiculous about this
Hmm.
movie. And that was kind of one of the things was having the moment of, Jonah kind of finding, these like moments of calm in these Dawn Dimension, base YouTube licks. And
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
I mean, even something like that he's pulling this up. And another notable moment that I laughed
Hmm.
maybe even way too hard out loud, is him sitting there and enjoying, kind of going along with you, talking about the bass lick, and then
Oh yeah.
them honking at him just
Oh
as the
yeah.
light turns green.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
motherfucker, man. Like, I feel like I've been there. That's been me at one point
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
life. but what, like Dawn Dimension and the idea of, even like some of, these videos, where do those ideas, come from as far as you, or, within
Yeah.
the writers? Like how did those
I
come
mean,
about, or how are they personal to you?
uh, I do watch a lot. I do have a lot of YouTube videos on while I'm driving, which is not safe. And they'll use this tape as part of my funeral when I
Oh
in,
no.
inevitably
We're listening. We're listening, Josh. We're
inevitably
listening.
drive off into the ocean and because I'm yeah. But
Dear Lord.
but also like I mean it's interesting because it evolved like I think initially it was probably inspired by like in Drag Me to Hell, um, Alison Lohman's character is always like she's like listening to these like
Listening to the tapes.
tapes, yeah,
Oh shit.
like I feel like those are sort of like accent, maybe it was like accent elimination tapes or something.
Uh-huh.
And so that was initially a thought was like, oh, he's a guy who's like, he lacks so much self confidence that he's like, initially he was like listening to like Tony Robbins or that sort of like, hey, get out there,
Yeah.
get out there, and make something of yourself, with the knowledge that that voice would then start, assaulting
Yeah.
him.
The fucking
But
bassist.
yeah, but then it just then I think we had it written where it was like, I mean, it was like audio, and then it was like, oh, what if it was video? Like he's watching these old things, and I don't know who's. I feel like maybe it was Alex or something, but at some point it was like, oh, what if it's one of these like how to rock videos or whatever. I mean, and a big influence. Like I mean, those things are really funny, but like there's this British sketch show called Snuffbox with Matt Berry, who's now in What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yep.
hey, this guy. He
Yeah.
there's a really funny sketch where he's like he's teaching you how to play the guitar, and at one point, like he has like 12 fingers or something. It's like just so it's so stupid. But I was
Awesome.
like, I love I love Matt Berry, and I love that like those the British comedy, and like so that was part of it too. Is like, oh, we can do our own little snuff box thing or whatever. Um,
Okay. Okay.
but that was definitely what fed into that. Um,
Bastards.
but I think, but what's funny too is that like, not to spoil it, but like the whole Caleb or not the whole Augie thing, and Swig Anderson, like them being the same guy, like that was not planned. Like at a certain point, we put it together. I mean, a lot of the screenwriting, a lot of that process was trying to connect. Like we just kept trying to connect threads.
Okay.
Kind of in a similar way to, I mean, like like one of the best movies ever, Shaun of the Dead,
Hmm.
and I mean that movie is just like a perfect movie in so many ways. But like every one of the lessons I learned or tried to learn was like every little element that pops up pays off, and so we really tried to 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 do that. So or anytime you could make a connection where you go like, oh, that's awesome. So
Oh,
that was a
okay.
big part where it was like at some point we were sitting around. I don't know who came up with it, but it was this like, oh, what if Swig Anderson is Augie or Augie, and it was like it was just so stupid that we were like, yeah, let's do it. This is completely insane, And a lot of it too is like it's like, is this even happening? Like, is this in William's mind? Like,
Mhm.
and I don't, I should probably have an answer for that, but it's like I don't,
You
it's
know,
like because it kind of
it's
it's like
it's it's
like
fun. It's one of those things where, like, I mean, there's definitely moments and there's definitely movies that have happened, and even in recent history that I've watched, and you're kind of stuck in that moment, or you're stuck in this kind of medium of like, uh, what am I supposed to be making of this? But I think there's like so much there's so much kind of to unpack, and so much that's going on that feels very real world, or kind of like a Goosebumps, choose your own path,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it feels fun. It
yeah,
doesn't feel frustrating. I mean, there's not really like moments where I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Like
right,
it
yeah.
it,
I mean, I'm
it,
not
it
trying,
works
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and it's like I'm not trying to do like a David Lynch like mind fuck or whatever, like there's no
Yeah.
like that's what I hope about the movie is that like um I don't know, like as weird as it is and as what serious as we take it, like I feel like my hope is that there's a lack of pretension to it, and that it's the sort of thing that I don't know that just you just want to enjoy, that it's just
Hmm.
there for you to enjoy, in the same way that like a Key and Peele sketch, or just like you know just a weird comedy.
Yeah.
um you know I mean, a
I
big
think.
thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, just a big thing about the movie too that I think about is like you're talking about influences and stuff, is like I grew up like loving Mad Magazine,
Okay.
and just weird comic books,
Hmm.
um where know whether it's like reading old kind of like creep show kind of Tales from the Crypt sort of comics or whatever, like or even just weird like Robert Crumb, or I don't know, just like crazy comics. Like that was part of it too. Is it's like um, I don't know, like trying to infuse, like in the comic book world. There's already a very big tradition of like these sort of gloopy horror, weird, crazy psychedelic things.
Hmm.
But it's not as represented in movies, so that was part of it too. Is it's like
Okay.
how do I take that Mad Magazine grotesque aesthetic
Hmm.
of just the world being off,
Yeah.
and see if we can fit it into this goofy comedy about
I
a
I mean,
rock musician.
like, so kind of touching on even the set design. We've talked about characters, we've talked about,
Yeah.
relationships, different things. But one thing that I found, that was kind of fascinating was the difference in the apartments and,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, in the sense of the typical musician non-cleanliness and rappers
Mm-hmm.
along the keyboards and fucking, you got some crumbs over here and different things, but not
Yeah.
overly too bad. Not the worst,
Yeah.
musician apartment I've ever seen. And then you have a Vlad's situation
Yeah.
that's very, like you had mentioned, the red and blue and very hyper color. And
Yeah.
what was that conversation for, as far as, for set design and pulling that off? Was
Yeah.
this an actual apartment building that the two rooms were right together?
Oh,
Was it
right.
separate locations?
So we built that whole set, like we built the hallway and the two rooms.
Damn.
In a Yeah, so we were in a warehouse in the middle of like uh basically downtown LA, or like South LA. It, it was stupid. It was like, it's so hot. It was the hottest week of the year, and we had, so we're in this hot ass warehouse, and then inside we had built an apartment building, and then inside there are these hot rooms. It was ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we looked at some practical locations, um, but which would have been cool. But like, I mean, the ones that we found for our budget, like we did not have a lot of money for this movie. It looks like we had a lot of money, but some of the places we looked at were just had a good texture, but like were just unsafe. Like they were just like we're gonna die of like rat shit, lung disease or whatever. Uh, so yeah, so I mean, big big props to Katie Simon, who was our production designer, because she just, you know she worked on my friend Ryan Spindell's movie, The Mortuary Collection.
Oh
Um,
shit. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Oh
that
man.
movie, I mean, geez, like Ryan is just so good at like creating that level of texture, that sort of
Oh.
Guillermo del Toro like texture. And so in many ways I was trying to like piggyback off of that, or to just, I don't know, like, a lot of the movies, like one of my favorite directors is Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who did Amelie and
Okay.
Delicatessen, and
Yeah.
I love the feeling of Amelie and these like, or even Barton Fink or something. But just knowing that we didn't have, we were going to stay in LA, like we couldn't really go. I feel like there's this place you could find this kind of places more on the East Coast, or um, in Europe, certainly, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was part of it. It's like we wanted this, for the amount of money we had to spend. Like I wanted to like make it feel worn down and detailed, and yeah, like with William's place, like, I mean, lucky for him, he has Emily to keep him in check. But like, if it was just the William apartment, it would probably just be like, a fire hazard or whatever. And then Vlad's place was a funny challenge because he's only supposed to have been there like a few days or a week.
Right.
The time frame is kind of fluid, but like, um, I mean, it was just kind of a funny idea of like, oh, this guy's just bringing in a couch, but then like suddenly he has all this stuff in his apartment, and you know,
Yeah.
um, um,
A
oh,
bench press,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
couch. That was.
I mean,
I don't know if I remember any food or
yeah,
just the basic living.
yeah.
Just essentials for him.
At one point before we did the weight bench thing, I had this idea of him, like him being in the bath, like William finds him, like, comes in, and like I had written a whole sequence where he was like in the bath, like just eating sausages. He just had like, 'cause I saw some picture of like a Russian guy like in a bath with like a table over the bathtub with
Oh
just like all
yeah.
this food,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, oh, that would just be, and like him standing up, and like we just see from behind like his like little wrinkly ass or something like that. But probably for the better, we decided to go with the
Oh,
weightlifting stuff. But
oh man.
yeah. But
God.
similarly, it's like that's what's so fun is that. you know, everything. It feels very corny in film school, but like everything does come back to their character, and how do these places inform their character? So it's like, you know, you see that he's made his own workout set out of like, you know, buckets filled with cement, and like
Yeah.
you suddenly
Bricks.
know you know something about this guy, like you know that this is like a scrappy guy who doesn't let the lack of frills like stop him. I don't know. Or similarly, like with Williams' place, it's like, you know, he's carved away this little corner of their place that's just like a complete shrine
Mhm.
to his obsessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Was the musical gear, was that, I mean, yeah, obviously it sounds like there's some musicians involved, and was that, like kind of a collective of everybody, just, hey man, can you have a couple of keyboards, can you bring this shit over here, I'm
Oh
trying to get a scene
yeah,
together?
yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think I think some of it was we borrowed it from friends, and some of it was, our our the person in front of in charge of props, Kristen. She was the one who, like, we'd have to go on these little treks to like weird, keyboard stores and be like, okay, let's get that one and that one and that one, and you know,
Awesome.
um, I mean, if we had a bigger budget, like, because I've been looking at, um, like Rick Wakeman from the band Yes, like he just has like so many keyboards, like, you know, it,
Insane.
if we had that, because each one of these keyboards is like so expensive. Like we
Right.
went to there's like a synthesizer museum somewhere around here in LA, which I think is probably just like this guy, like his excuse to his wife for like why he owns all these, like, oh, I'm not crazy, it's the museum. It's like, okay.
People want to see this. I had
Yeah,
3 in
yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, what's funny is like a friend of mine has like a setup that's like even way more ornate than Williams, like with all these like wires everywhere, and
Oh, dude,
I wanted
it
to
never
borrow, yeah,
ends.
yeah.
Never ends.
Um, but
Fuck,
that
I
was
love that.
really fun, But again, too, it's like low budget filmmaking. Like you kind of like it's a lot of begging and borrowing, and
Uh,
just figuring, cobbling it together, and just doing what you can to make it work.
yeah,
Um,
I love it. I mean,
yeah.
and even like some of the smaller details, something, and kind of hearing your interest in music and records,
Hmm.
and your dad, when you were younger, leaving you with some records too.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask about the scene with Pig Guy, and
Yeah.
he's kind of, tossing down the records and things. Were any of those, mostly out of focus, but were those
Oh
from
yeah.
like personal
Oh,
collection, or were there
interesting.
anything that were a prop?
I mean, I think like for legal reasons, we like created our own band,
Oh, sure, sure.
and so like Dawn Dimension's a fake band, I guess,
Yeah.
obviously, but
I wish was
you know,
real, if
yeah,
I can
yeah,
put that
yeah,
out there.
and I mean, we're definitely having discussions of like if there's a sequel, like I have this fantasy of like because Augie's saying that time is an illusion,
Uh-huh.
that maybe Dawn Dimension's music like created a portal, that like a rift in time, and so if we do the sequel, we can go back to the '70s and like
Oh
yeah,
God,
you know uh,
sick.
but yeah. So what we had to do, we sort of just brainstormed like between all of us, the writers and myself, like we compiled a big list of names and then sent it to a lawyer, and they like told us which ones um were not already taken as real bands.
Oh shit,
Yeah,
really? Wow.
so that was kind
Okay.
of it. So yeah, unfortunately none of the or I guess luckily none of those records were real.
Okay.
I definitely spent way too much time like trying to go down the path of like getting approval from real
Mhm.
bands, and trying to use their music and stuff. But I mean, luckily, like our soundtrack is amazing, so like I'm happy that that didn't happen. But you know,
Honestly, I was gonna say, I feel like I feel like that's probably it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. One of my favorite movies ever is Maximum Overdrive. And anybody,
Yeah,
that ever talks about that movie, they bring up the soundtrack and AC/DC fucking does it. It's like,
yeah,
it's sick. I mean, I love the energy that it kind of feeds
yeah,
into that. But, for a movie like this that is very, just tongue in cheek with schlockiness and with just the
hmm
over the top, I love that, like, this Dawn Dimension thing is something that he is so
yeah,
obsessed with, and Twig is this bassist that he just completely like admires, and it's just a fucking dork.
yeah.
Like, I mean, like, you look at it and it's like, look at these
Right.
guys,
Yeah.
listen to this music, and like I say these things, I
Right.
love this shit,
Oh,
so
for
I'm
sure.
not being
Yeah.
offensive saying this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like, I love that you kind of take on that extra step of like creating that world and creating this new stuff and having, like, ridiculous names kind of going back and
Yeah.
forth. And ah, man, I love the fuck out of
Well,
that. It didn't work out, having
yeah.
actual bands.
Well, so much of the process of making the movie too, or at least like my advice to young filmmakers or whatever is like, so much of it was just like, what do we have around us that's
Dude,
awesome?
I love that.
Like whenever I like talk to like a film class or whatever, I'm always like, who do you know that can do a backflip? Like, go film your friend that can do a backflip because backflips are awesome, and then now you have a backflip in your,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like no knowing Ryan Katner, in the band Man Man and Brett, like that's one of our backflips. Like that's one of our like, we have these guys who can do something that's just, I mean, it costs money to pay them, and we severely underpaid, but like, they have an awesome talent that we can put into the
Mm-hmm.
movie. Similarly, like with Gabe Bartalos with the gore effects and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, it was just like, all right, like what are the elements that we have access to that we can afford that we can throw into this thing? And you know, the soundtrack is amazing. Like
That's so awesome,
it's
man.
on
That's so sick.
Spotify. It's on Spotify right now. Like,
Okay.
it's funny because one of the writers, one of the writers, Charlie, like listens to it. Like Charlie's like the biggest super fan of our movie, and he
I've
made it.
recently got in contact. Yeah,
Yeah,
it seems
he
awesome.
is so enthusiastic. But he was just like, yeah, man, I've been listening to this like every day, and my neighbors are probably gonna kill me because I'm playing it so loud. And I put it on in the car, and I was like, oh my, like it's really good. Like, I mean, it fits with the movie, obviously, and like I've heard it a million times, but like listening to the soundtrack on its own is its own thing. Like, it's really, and there's like snippets from the movie, and
Sweet.
but just
It's awesome.
it's it's so hard for me to have objectivity about the movie because I'm so
Involved.
close to it.
Yeah,
But
right.
like,
Sure.
and so there's just little glimpses of like, oh man, like if this was not my movie and I found out that this soundtrack existed, I would lose. I would become obsessed because I'm just like, this is everything that's awesome in the world in one record,
Oh, man.
um,
I love
which also just might, which might just be proof of me being crazy.
it.
But it's like there's these very like textural, like Tom Waits, like one of the things we talked about was the Jim Jarmusch movie Night on Earth, like just these really, a lot of like the stuff in the hallways.
I don't think I've
um
seen that one. I love his stuff.
Night Yeah, Night on Earth is great. Like Tom Waits does the soundtrack, and it's amazing. It's really kind of like understated. But Night on Earth is like, it's like five, I think 4 or 5 different like almost like short films that take place in a taxi, but they're in different countries or cities. I think like one's in New York and one's has like Roberto Benigni in like Rome, or um, it's it's good stuff.
Hmm.
But
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
I've never heard of this movie
yeah,
before. Winona Ryder and
yeah, it's
oh
fun.
shit.
But again, that's what's fun. That's what's fun about this movie is that like, you can have a movie that's just like as dumb as an Ernest movie in parts, but then we're referencing
Maybe
like
depth and
an art house
it's beautiful, beautiful
movie
thing.
with yeah.
I love, like the textures that are involved in this. I really, I don't want to take up your whole day. We
Yeah.
could probably be here for another couple hours
For
at
sure.
my expense, from
Yeah.
enjoying this and loving, the movie.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
I kind of two things with all of the props and the
Mhm.
practicals that we've talked about this. Did you get to bring anything home? Was there anything that, you had to just pocket to put up on your own personal
Yeah,
shelf there?
I mean, I have like the intestines. They're I think they're in my car right now because I brought them to the premiere. But yeah, I mean,
Oh my god, I
I
love that.
I you
Driving
know
around with this shit.
I love all. I mean, if I was allowed to, I would just have everything in my place. But
Yeah.
I think Gabe has such like an amazing shrine in his he has this
Dude,
warehouse
I can't
up in like,
imagine.
and he just has it's like he has Belial from Basket Case, he has Aylmer
Oh,
from Brain Damage, and like he did he worked in these Matthew Barney, who was Bjork's husband, or boyfriend or something, I don't know. Matthew Barney did these crazy art movies, and he did like you know all the stuff for those movies, and like they're all over. Um, so most of the props I think are like on display somewhere in his lair.
man.
But I I kind of want to like get the hand, like the Vlad hand.
Oh yeah.
When I have some free time, I want to like talk him into like giving me the hand, and then like having like a little glass dome, so it's just like on display.
That's so
But
sick.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's half the reason why I do any of this stuff is like you know to
And
to keep the props.
I mean, and how cool, as far as like you first and foremost. I mean, being a
Yeah,
fan and being able to think of the said warehouse and all the cool things that are in there, and it's like holy shit, man! Like
yeah,
that's something that I had a so to speak
yeah,
hand in. Uh, I,
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's I can't even really like I like I said, like I'm so close to it that I can't have a objectivity. Like it's it still is hard for me to process that, like, oh, like I'm integrally linked now to Gabe and his lineage of work. Speaking of Insane Clown Posse, he worked on ICP's a couple of their music videos, and like one of their they did a movie called Big City, or what's the big there's Big City, there's Big Money Hustlers and
Mm-hmm.
Big City Rustlers or something. Anyway, but he has this giant rotting foot, like a huge foot from ICP, like just in his warehouse, like because there's in one of the ICP in one of the ICP movies, like they it's like a western, and like this. Oh, my headphones are dying. Wait,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Um, this dude rolls in with a giant stinky foot in this ICP movie, and it smells so bad, like it's killing people, like people are throwing up and stuff. But it's like
Holy
he
shit.
has that big foot in his warehouse, and it's like somehow whatever I did is now connected to that that lineage, and I'm very proud of it. Or to
Oh
think
my
that like
god.
in Alex's career, because he's done a ton of stuff, but he hasn't acted in that many movies. And it's like wow, like Lost Boys, Bill and Ted, Freaked, and then now this, and hopefully our movie is good enough to fit, you know to at least be on the shelf below all those movies or something.
Yeah.
um it's exciting and makes me really happy, and again, it's like we didn't have a ton of money. Like it was really like it took 10 years to make this thing. Like I think a lot of people,
Holy shit. No
yeah,
kidding. Wow.
from the time that we started coming up with the idea to making it. So I don't know, it's like it's just it's really hard to make, and it's like a total labor of love, but like I'm crazy proud of it, and
Um,
yeah. Anyway.
You should be. One of the things I think, in rapping here that I can say, I mean, as far as somebody that's, disconnected from it, who doesn't
Mhm.
have any personal ties, I think when I mentioned earlier, like Ernest movies and different things, and obviously, like the different, comedic standpoints and, the silliness to it. There's something about this story, and there's something about the runtime, the playthrough where when I watched it, I had just kind of restarted it again, and it
Oh
didn't
wow.
feel like something where it was something that I'm coming off a sequel, or that I tail in at the end. Whether or not you guys do a sequel with it, I think the cool thing with it is that it's being its own standalone thing. I
Yeah.
can sit here and have fun with this, and it kind of become like a comfort movie where I
Oh
toss
wow.
it on and I'm doing some shit with, and I like look up and I'm like, oh fuck, man, I love this part still. Again, like it's
Oh,
still
thank
so
you.
funny.
That's it.
I,
It's
I,
weird. It's
oh,
weird because
what?
I've heard that from like a lot of people, like in a weird way, where it's like they're like, "Yeah, I've watched it 2 or 3 times already," or like,
Dude.
or I can't wait to see it again, And that was part of it. Part of the creation of it was to have it be a dense enough puzzle, or have enough Easter eggs or whatever, enough little things in there, or jokes that maybe you won't catch the first couple times.
that's
Or maybe not at
that
all.
that yeah, no, that's it. I think I want to emphasize on, with people kind of going into it and seeing like the trailer and the blood and all of this, look for the
Yeah.
comedy, the fucking comedic element to this. And maybe even like, like I say, so I'm not keeping you all day. The final thing I want to touch
Yeah.
on is that, and with little moments, such as and probably the killer to me was toward the end here, where oh fuck, I'm trying to think of who it was that says it, but he says he says something to the effect of like, just kill me, I fucking hate Prague.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
just
Caleb
wants it
Bang
to
Jansen.
be,
Yeah.
I don't want, like what was a moment that maybe from like pen to
Hmm.
paper you thought was funny, but seeing it acted out, or seeing it, in real time, you're like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
they killed this.
That's a good question. I mean, I think to bring it back to Ryan Katner, like we knew that Caleb Bang Jansen was just going to be funny. It's going to be funny. Like, I mean, it's kind of based on like Father John Misty was a little bit. It
Okay,
was
yeah.
sort of like a weird, like a mashup of like Father John Misty and like Post Malone, maybe, or I don't know, like, or
Okay.
just whoever. Like, so that was a thing where we were like, oh, this is an opportunity for a really funny actor or something. But like when he just all the stuff he added, like when he's talking about like this, my music's made to fuck, and he's just like, we were not ready for that at all. Like he just went into it. And I think if you watch closely, like you can see that like Jonah's trying to not laugh, or like Thomas is like hiding his face. But like, yeah, I mean, just like seeing how like really funny Ryan could be. Uh, that just I
Yeah,
think that killed
yeah.
us.
What a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. What a beautiful thing. I cannot,
Oh,
recommend it enough. I'm
thanks,
a
man.
little irritated that I feel like I'm very involved in, especially horror, and within this page, and I have so many
Yeah.
friends on here that you
Yeah.
constantly are seeing different things. Somebody posts up something, and I don't know how. I hadn't seen this yet. I hadn't seen anything as far as like with on
Yeah.
Shudder, different things, work schedule, kind of is new. But thank God,
Oh,
and
thank you.
honestly, Josh, I have to say thank you, dude.
Yeah.
This is absolutely
Thank you.
incredible. I've not stopped recommending it to people. I've got friends in Indonesia and Japan that are like, "Fuck, man! Like, we don't have Shudder. Like, how do I watch this?" Like,
Yeah.
is there anything as far as like possibly a physical release?
There's got
Touching on that.
there. I mean, I keep saying that there has to be like. I mean, I'm not unlike William. I'm very like just drilled into my own weird corner of the world, and like I don't pay attention to anything. So but I know that those conversations are happening, and
Okay,
like
cool.
there has to be like they're just in, you know, and we have so much great behind the scenes stuff too, and like there's so like I mean there's probably like an hour of, I mean I don't know overpromise, but like there's like a ton of amazing hilarious outtakes. that I just want to share. Like we almost did one of those like blooper reels at the end of the movie, like just to get it in there. So that's definitely going to be in the works.
Man.
And in the
God, I hope
interim,
so.
you know, there's talk about doing like a physical release for the soundtrack, and maybe doing something pretty like cool and deluxe with that. So,
Dude,
yeah,
that's awesome. Awesome.
you know,
Awesome.
so, but yeah, we got to have the physical media. I mean, I love Shudder and I love what they're doing, and I mean, this opportunity is just so crazy, but like, you never know. Like, you know, Shudder could get eaten up by, you know, another company, and like, it's like, where does it go? So having those physical things, you know, and it just gives us more opportunity for more jokes, you know, like, I mean, like you know, Jonah was on Mystery Science Theater 3000, you know,
Right.
it's like, we have like, we would be idiots if we didn't like put out a riff track version, you know, like let's
Oh shit.
whether it's him and the characters, or if it's, you know, it's like even just doing
Oh man.
commentary, like you know, there's just so much opportunity. Like there's, you know, there's jokes on the table that we have that I don't want to leave any joke on the table,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Man,
yeah,
yeah. If I don't want it being something where like, you know, I'm ever like pressuring as far as like news like coming out that's not, you know, or like a Blu-ray is not, you know, I love and I appreciate, you know, what went into this, and
yeah,
you know, myself being a long time fucking damn near lifelong, you know, horror fan. The tangible, you know, something to have on my shelf, and somebody pulls out even
oh
the
yeah,
spine and they're like, what the fuck, you know, like my kids
yeah,
have grown up with me having movies, and they're like, oh no, what is it, like how scary is this
yeah,
one, you know, like the poster art, you know,
yeah.
there's so much
Yeah,
to love
yeah.
with
I mean,
this, man, like
to
it's
bring it back to that Freddy Krueger I saw, that faded Freddy Krueger
mm-hmm,
poster. You know,
mm-hmm.
it's like there's something about those tangible things and seeing the art, and um, you know, I mean, that's why I'm so excited about our you know, our poster as I'm in my kid's bed right now. You know, um, but it's like in making the movie, so much of what my thought process was kind of geared towards that. Like, I wanted to have characters that you know, again back to ICP, like Violent J would always talk about, like, you know, like, what's the action figure like, what's the cartoon, you know, could you having characters that are iconic enough that you could you know, that people are able to do fan art, or that whatever, not for the sake of, not just for the sake of it being
Like a
poppy or whatever.
repostability or anything,
Yeah,
but
but
for that opportunity.
it's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
just,
for
you know,
sure.
you think of the things that are the most enduring um, in pop culture, and it's like, you know, I mean, I'm looking at Pennywise right there. It's like, you know, there are these iconic things that just endure beyond the film or the book or whatever, and it's like that was, you know, in our own little way with our little movie, like I wanted to try and do that, and have like give these characters so much of a life that, you know, it's very easy to imagine the world beyond that. It's, you know, it's fun to imagine what other Swig Anderson videos would look like. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, I'm here for it, man. I honestly am. I've reached out to a couple of people here, you know, different people involved in the movie, and
Oh, amazing.
honestly, I would love to, you know, hear more about it.
Yeah,
But
get
this
Charlie on.
has
Charlie,
been fucking incredible, dude.
thanks, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say I reached out to Charlie. I think we were kind of in the talks of something here, so in the next like coming months or whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome, and I'm trying to do my part. The word of mouth, brother. You know what I'm saying? It's, especially on here, it's a huge thing. There's a huge, big horror community and a lot of great people.
And that's, I mean, the movie was designed in that way too. Again, not in like a crass way, but in like, you know, in the way of like, man, I want to make that movie that people, I don't know, that's in that category. So when you're going down the list of like horror comedies, and you know, you've already seen, you know, what Tucker and Dale, and you've seen the Evil Deads, and you've seen, you know, Dead Alive or whatever, it's like, all right, what's next? It's like, well, have you seen Destroy All Neighbors? Like, what's that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, dude, yeah, because it's not a there's not a lot in that category. There's not a lot of really funny movies that have the horror component. And like you said, like it's definitely way more of a comedy than it is horror, but like
Mm-hmm.
I hope with the practical effects and the pedigree and the references and the whatever, like I feel like it's horror enough to be on Shudder and to be in that world. But
Without a doubt.
yeah.
This is I mean, I don't want this to be like a discrediting, like mention, but there was somebody or there was something, maybe even a comment or
Sure,
some
yeah,
shit
yeah.
that somebody had mentioned, like, oh, the comedic focus and that. This is a fucking horror movie.
Or
like
whatever.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I mean, like to me, I feel like this is absolutely a horror movie, and obviously, like the comedy hits, it lands, it absolutely works of it. But when you kind of get into the thick of everything, it's like this is fucked.
Yeah. Well, it's this crazy nightmare, and I think what people aren't ready for is how funny it is, like for this category. Mm-hmm. Like I mean, I don't want to be like too egotistical, but like it has to be the funniest movie on Shudder. Like I could be wrong. Like prove me wrong, but that was part of the thought process. Was like, okay, like what do we have around us? Like I have these great musicians. Like I'm funny. Like we have a lot of like amazing comedians. It's like I bet we could sneak into the back door and just knock people's dicks off or whatever just by being funny.
Yeah.
It's like I can't out scare you. I can't out whatever this or that, and like making werewolves is hard, but whatever. But it's like I know I can be funny. Although
the tools at hand.
Josh Rubin's movie Scare Me, what is it, Scare Me to Death or Scare Me or something,
oh yeah.
And werewolves, I mean, like Josh's movies are really, really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Joe Lynch's movies are funny. Like there are a lot of like really funny movies out there, but I knew that like I knew we could fight in that
competitive standpoint. Prove me wrong. My movie is the funniest. And fuck, I mean, like, it's kind of one of those things that I think is funny where we're kind of talking about, Tucker and Dale, and we're talking about Shaun of the Dead. I've never seen either of those movies.
Oh, really?
I will show you the hundreds of however too many movies that I have, horror movies, and have collected forever. I've never seen either of those.
Dude, I mean, Tucker and Dale is like a genius little. I don't want to say anomaly, but like it's just it's such a crazy premise that it works the whole time, and it's like it's a beautiful thing. But like I mean, Shaun of the Dead is like you got to like just stop whatever you're doing and watch. It's just I mean I don't want to oversell it, but it's like in so many ways it's a perfect movie. Like
I think it's one of those things where my wife has always been like, look, you haven't seen this movie, it's hilarious, we need to watch it. And I'm like, yeah, but I do have hobgoblins.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I could watch that.
they did put out a 6K re-release of Munchies that I really need to dive into. Yeah.
Dude, Josh, this has been absolutely incredible, man.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this will be the last time we talk.
I
look forward to we didn't even get time to. I've written down notes about Contracted too, which I fucking loved also. Let's plan on something, talking
anytime, man. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. You're good people. So
anybody who hasn't seen it, Destroy All Neighbors, now on Shudder, possibly soundtrack. Go and support it. Shudder has like a fucking 5-day free trial. If anything, pop on just to get this. Watch this movie is fucking stand up, man.
Yeah.
I cannot say enough good things.
Awesome.
Thank you once again for the time today, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Take care.
Enjoy. See ya.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.